Member Roundy, and then we're going to have a Pledge of Allegiance with Commission Member Stimson.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're very grateful for this opportunity we have to meet as a planning commission and to help plan and support the mission of our city and for its residents. And we ask you to please help us and guide us that we may be able to make decisions that will benefit our city and make it beautiful and a wonderful place to live for our residents now and in the future. And we're very grateful for our freedoms that we enjoy. And we ask you to please bless those that are serving our country and to please bless and protect them. And we ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Would everyone please stand and repeat the pledge with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, actions on our minutes from our last meeting. Any changes, corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve our minutes from the December 14th, 2022 meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from our December 14th meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we should note there's 2 new planning commission members in the audience here tonight. Apparently state law requires them to have some training before they can sit up here with us, so they are here and eagerly taking it all in, I'm sure, so we welcome them. Okay, actions taken by the city council. Sherry?
We actually don't have anything to report.
Okay, that's easy. Okay, item 5, appointments. Chair for next year. Do I have nominations?
I nominate Darren Deem for chairman.
I'll second.
Do we have any other nominations?
Crickets.
Okay, it's my last year, so there'll be a new chair after this next year. Okay, all those in favor of me maintaining the chairmanship, however you say that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, vice chair, nominations?
I would like to nominate Andrew as the vice chair.
I'll second it.
Any other nominations?
You can
Nope.
nominate somebody. No others? Okay, all those in favor of Andrew Reyna being vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, you're the vice chair. And then temporary chairman, which is in case the chairman and the vice chairman are not there, the temporary chairman will conduct the meeting. I have nominations for a temporary chair. It's
I'll
gotta
nominate
be-
Natalie to be the temporary chair.
I'll second it.
Any other nominations? Natalie, you're not gonna nominate anyone else?
I guess I could, huh?
Yeah, you could.
I'm getting a head shake from the other end. You just better not vacation at the same time, so schedule wisely.
We'll try not to.
On a PTA night, on a PTA or a back to school night. Yeah,
Yeah,
just don't
there you
go
go.
out of town on a back to school night.
Parent-teacher
Parent-teacher
Could
conference.
be a problem. All right, all those in favor of Natalie Wilson as temporary chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Natalie's temporary chair. Okay, we're gonna make a change to the agenda and move item 12, preliminary site plan approval for Come and Go, to the next item on the agenda. So someone here for that? I see you. You're up. Come on up to the podium. You've never been here live before. You're always online, so. Did you see the beautiful mountains today?
Yeah, it's so beautiful. The sun came fully out and the mountains came out. It was great. Yeah. So hi, I'm Megan Walter. I'm with Olson. I represent Come and Go. We also have Sarah, who's with Come and Go, one of their project managers. So she can also answer questions. But this is our 3rd application in West Haven at Hinckley and Midland, right tucked in the corner of some existing apartment buildings. But here to answer any questions.
The building that they're going to do is identical to a building that they have previously submitted.
Which one, the first or the second?
The second one. So the first one was our bigger marketplace,
Okay.
and the second two, it's the bistro, which is about 1,500 square feet smaller. But similar offerings, all the materials of the building elevations are the same on both. Just a smaller footprint with, these construction prices that have been so high,
Yeah.
honestly.
Both points of access to this are controlled by UDOT. So there's nothing that we need to do on coordinating the access. Because that'll all they have to comply with UDOT. And we don't have the ability to overrule UDOT requirements where they're UDOT controlled roads.
Right.
They have met all of the landscaping. They've met all the landscaping standards. They've met the design requirements. I mean, you've seen the design of the building with this site for 4,000 and 3,500. They have to follow the same requirements that they've been held to on their other sites, as far as like dealing with the DEQ for underground storage tanks, going through alcohol and beverage services for their liquor license. They have sufficient parking. They've met all of the site review standards.
Yeah.
And similar with their other sites, they've been made aware that before they can come back for final, they have to have substantial compliance on their site civils. And they're in process on the other two, so they're aware that the same process applies here.
Yeah, it's pretty thorough for a preliminary, so. Yours are always very thorough, it seems.
Yeah,
so.
we like to do enough design that we know it's going to be a viable site before coming in front of you all. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Looks
and
good
yeah,
to me.
UDOT already gave us the thumbs up on those access points, and so
The what?
UDOT gave us the thumbs up already on the access points, and so that's all been
Which
kinda
I had
cleared.
imagined they would, because I think those access points were actually already anticipated and secured prior to you guys looking at, because there was somebody else that was looking at that site that's here in the audience tonight, and UDOT had already anticipated the access points.
Well, we appreciate their help.
Thank the guy in the plaid shirt back there.
Okay, any other questions?
Someone approached me before the meeting with a question about truck access and routing, and I did check. We have run our trucks through the site. We run fuel truck delivery and semi-truck delivery. So we actually don't offer fuel for those trucks at this location, but it's just for deliveries, and they kind of go back of house through there, and so they're
Yeah.
able to snake through there just fine. So
You don't offer what, did you say?
we don't encourage semi-tractor trailer fueling.
Oh, okay.
So at this site, so it's not like a semi-site friendly.
Well, and two, just to give further context on your answer to that question, part of the engineering design review for any commercial site is they're required to provide turning templates to show how the largest vehicle is anticipated on the site, to show that they have enough room for those to be able to maneuver through. That's something that we actually start looking at from the time somebody first comes in and talks to engineering staff and land use staff before it even gets to site plan review at planning commission. We start looking at the turning templates and turning radiuses on projects before it even hits planning commission, because that's a big enough thing that if they can't meet the turning templates, we make them go back and do redesign before it gets to planning commission.
And honestly, for come and goes purposes, they don't want the trucks, rolling over curbs and rutting into nice, pretty landscaping. And so, we check those things thoroughly just for their own maintenance purposes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we grant preliminary site plan approval, subject to the following conditions. Prior to final approval, they will provide with the city a will-serve letter from the Hooper Water Improvement District, a finalized elevation showing the distribution of architectural materials across the building to ensure compliance with the design criteria, which looks like they've provided quite detailed plans already. So,
Yeah.
with that,
and that's all the standard stuff we've told you guys you have to have.
yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to grant preliminary site plan approval for Come and Go Convenience Store on the northeast corner of Midland Drive and Hinckley Drive, with the provision that they will give a will-serve letter from Hooper Water Improvement District and finalized elevation showing the distribution of architectural materials across the building to ensure compliance with the design criteria. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, you have preliminary approval.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Safe
Appreciate it.
flights back home.
Yeah. Thank you for reordering everything too, so I can catch the last flight out of SLC here.
Sounds
Good luck.
Okay, item number 6, a public hearing to consider an amendment to the West Haven Zone residential patio home zone. You want to give us a little overview of that, Sherry?
Yeah, just based on feedback from the Planning Commission and the City Council, we have an amendment before you to recommend to the council that removes the allowance for zero lot line projects and also clarifies that if a use is not listed as permitted, it's prohibited. This does not affect the project currently under review on 2200. They are allowed to proceed as the ordinance was written, as the ordinance stands currently right now. This just affects future projects.
Okay. Do I have a motion to enter into public hearing?
I'll make a motion, we enter public hearing to discuss the, sorry, I gotta put my specs back on. Consider an amendment to the residential patio home zone.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to enter in public hearing for the patio home zone ordinance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're in public hearing. Any member of the public who'd like to come speak up on this matter can do so at this time. Please come to the podium and state your name for the record. If you're online, please raise your hand.
I'm Andy Davis. I live at 2210 South, 2200 West. This is a change I'm happy to see, to remove the zero lot lines. I don't think that was what anyone ever intended in the patio home zone. That being said, this isn't a zone I've ever been a fan of, and the way the language is now, it may be best to eliminate this altogether and put it in a zone where we say this is for single families and this is the lot size. And I'll get to explaining that in just a minute. The first thing that I'm not a fan of is the language says this is intended for empty nest style housing. I don't know if you can go so far as to say that's discriminatory, but it's definitely geared towards an age-based group of people. I feel like the city should be making an attempt to provide housing for all classes of people, empty nesters, young people, married, unmarried, who cares race, it doesn't matter. So when we put ourselves into a specific category of people, that's not for the city to decide. That's up to a developer if they want to have an HOA agreement of some kind. So I've never been a fan of that. Let's provide housing for everybody. We don't need to shoehorn it specifically into one group. I didn't see in the new language anything about how many levels the building can be. There's a height restriction at 25 feet, it says that it's allowed a room above the garage. I didn't see anything that restricted, say, a basement or a second story. So isn't that every other single family house that we build in the city. So that's why I say maybe this should just be a residential zone that meets the density. Let's see. If the city intends to have a housing development specifically like what a patio home is, let's do it by design, not calling it an empty nest house. If we want it to be a single level slab on grade patio or whatever it may be, let's do it that way. I guess that's basically it. Yeah, okay. Thanks for your
Okay,
time.
thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we leave public hearing.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to leave public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're out of public hearing. So, do you
Can-
want to,
Can I answer
Yes,
a couple of
please.
things that he said? What you said about doing it by design, we're actually prohibited by the state of Utah from imposing residential design requirements. We can't we can set minimum lot sizes, but it's actually in state statute. The cities cannot dictate things like it has to be slab on grade, it has to have this kind of windows. I know there's a lot of places in the city that I think it would be appropriate if we were allowed to do that. But we are actually not allowed to do that. So anyways, I just wanted to answer that.
As far as his comment about empty nest size housing, is that appropriate to leave in there? Or is that, I mean, I think that's just kind of a suggested description, but it's not conform, like we have to conform.
I think just because typically patio homes are associated with older communities, and there are certain funding programs that are available for more designed senior communities.
But
There-
again, isn't the developer going to determine that? Would the language have to be in the ordinance, I think is
The language
question.
does not have to be in the ordinance. It can easily be taken out. I've seen patio home projects that are not age restricted. I've seen patio home projects that are. And honestly, truthfully, it is on the developer to decide whether or not
Yeah,
to
but
decide whether or not they're going to go that direction.
having that language in here doesn't restrict it to a developer having to do age restricted housing.
No, it doesn't.
It leaves it open. That's just saying kind of what the intent of the city was to provide
Yeah,
this kind of housing for it. But I mean, I guess I can see how it can be somewhat
yeah.
an
I
issue.
mean,
So I'm not strongly in favor of leaving it there. I'm not strongly opposed to
Yeah.
leaving it there either, but it doesn't affect what a developer can do. If they go in and they
No.
want to do a patio home that's open to all ages, they can still do that. We can't restrict that in any way.
most of the ones in the city are open to all ages. Very few are 55 and older.
So,
And I think, don't they have to get something from HUD to do the 55 and older? Don't they have to get some kind of a,
that's a designation that you have to go through the federal government on.
yeah.
So I know for a while, probably 10 or 12 years ago, I know that there was a lot of push for those. There's not the push for them now that there used to be. But for a while it was a huge hole in the housing market. Just the single level. But the push isn't there like it used to be, but there's still some demand for it.
Okay.
I think the last thing was the levels, like the 25-foot height restriction. What did we decide that allowed for? Did that only allow for a bonus room above the garage, or was that allowing for two levels?
It would
What
allow for a bonus room.
But not a two-story. It wouldn't be.
It'd be tight, I think, with a 2-story. So I mean, if you want to put in there that it's single level,
Does single level say it couldn't have a garage or a basement?
Did we put,
no. No, single level wouldn't prohibit them from having a basement, because it's the levels are counted, what's above grade.
but we'd want to be able to allow a bonus room still. So with single, if we said single level, would that still allow a bonus room?
No.
No. So we'd
If
have
you
to
want to
add that
be,
in.
if you want to be able to have a bonus room, I would recommend just leaving the height limit in place. Because that was part of the deal with zero lot lines, is that it specifically said single level, so you couldn't have a bonus room. But that was the only reference to single level in there. Otherwise, it's just capped by height.
So it's not in there now. Somebody could do a bonus room so long as they met the height restrictions.
Oh,
Right.
it specifically says that. In the maximum structure height, it says dwelling or other main building, 25 feet, habitable attic space permitted over garage area. So
Yeah.
that would allow the bonus room.
Yeah.
And these ones on 3500, the Cottle homes, some have bonus rooms, some don't, and they have
Yeah.
the same pitch, whether you have the bonus room or not. You just have to pay,
Yeah.
because we were kind of looking at them for our mom, and
Sometimes
look
putting a
nice.
bonus room in will affect the height. Sometimes it won't. It just depends whether you put it over the garage or whether you put it over like the living room. It just depends on the layout of the house.
so would we want to take, I don't know, do we want to have you kind of make some of these changes and kind of table it?
Well,
Or do we-
changes?
Which
Or the changes? Oh, okay.
It sounds like if you want the bonus room ability, it's already in there.
Just leave it there.
Yeah,
Okay, so if we
leave
just
it.
take,
You don't have to take anything.
so we just have to decide on the zero lot line and the height. and leave-
Zero
leave that
lot
the same.
lines.
The zero lot line's already stricken.
Okay,
So unless there are other changes that you want to see that are not already written in there, then you just need to make a recommendation to city council.
because we don't have it in our packet.
Yeah, it's right here.
It's in there.
Did I not
Yeah.
see it?
I mean, I guess the only thing is, do we want to take out the empty nest language or not? It doesn't really affect anything being in there, from what I can tell. But
Skipped over it then.
Yeah.
What page is that on?
7. Well, 7 in on a digital packet. On the packet itself, I think it's on page 5.
Right.
Sorry.
If you take the empty nest thing out, then we would need to craft some different
Language
language.
in
Because
there.
you get a certain picture when you say empty nest about it being, kind of all one level and
yeah,
of a smaller nature, and the lots are smaller.
And if we change any language at this point, we need to hold another public hearing?
No, I think you can, we could make that change and not have to hold another public hearing.
I think I'm good with how it is. I mean, I would like to, I just don't want there to be any ambiguity. And if the empty nest type housing is not gonna hold anyone to anything, then I'm fine to pass it going forward.
It doesn't obligate anybody to build the 55 and over.
Because my biggest concern was the zero lot line. Like, I would like to get this put in place and approve it as soon as possible so that we have a new ordinance.
We could actually add a sentence under purpose at the very end of it and say, empty nest does not put it in, empty nest does not obligate a developer to restrict for, age restrictions in the development.
Now we're getting paid by the word again.
I think you should be
Does it-
impressed that I am like just,
Doesn't it cover it when it says empty nest type?
Yes.
It's not saying it has to be empty nest, it's just saying that's the type it is.
I'm just saying, if that's something that you really want, you can add something, we could add like that sentence onto the end that, quote, empty nest does not obligate a developer to limit residents based on age.
You write that down?
Or just leave it the way it is.
I think where I'm fine either way, because if it's not restrictive, it's not something that I want to worry about.
Just put a little footnote by empty nest.
You got that, Andrew? You ready to?
Oh, I don't know about that, but
I'm good with the way it is too. If you want to put that, add that in, that's fine too. What do you three say?
yeah, I mean, it's hard because it really doesn't affect much in terms of the purpose if we do add that in, and I'm all about concise language, so I almost want to say not to put it in just because.
Well, it kind of just, I don't know.
I think it's just enabling people to understand what type of housing we're talking about, because that's what comes to mind when people,
Yeah.
not that, I mean, there are people who live in patio homes that have never been married, or, that's just kind of a term.
Or a disability, they're in the younger, or have that kind of a need.
If we just struck it from the sentence and it went to acceptable housing style for single-family type housing that is a sustainable quality product,
Well,
do you still get the
but
same
Amy
picture?
was saying the challenge with doing that is you kind of take away from, then do you have to put in, you want only single level and stuff like that to be more descriptive.
Yeah,
I see what you're
I don't
saying.
think the purpose binds anybody, so.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other thing to consider is that how many developable lots are there left that would fall under this
Patio home
category?
zones.
Patio home zones.
There's only like 2 or 3,
Like
isn't
2
there?
in the city.
Yeah.
One of them including the one that, does that include the one that we're working through right now?
Yeah.
So after that, it would be 1.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm okay moving it forward as is.
yeah.
Sounds good. I'll entertain a motion.
This one's a recommendation, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. You're being quiet on purpose. I'll make a recommendation that we pass the residential patio home zone on to city council for approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to the city council of the patio home ordinance in our packet. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Item number 8, public hearing to consider an update to the West Haven City Moderate Income Housing Plan. This is required by the state, or they don't give us any money. You
Just to give,
wanna shed some more light on that?
yeah, just to
Since you
give
worked
some
hard on it?
just to give some background and introduction to it. The state of Utah requires that every municipality over a certain size have a moderate income housing plan as a part of their general plan project, their general plan. The state outlines what has to be in the moderate income housing plan, like what elements the city has to have. They require certain verbiage, things like that. and cities are required to report to the state on how they are satisfying the requirements of state law as it pertains to that. Approximately 75% of cities throughout the state of Utah, including West Haven, got notified after submitting their 2022 reports that their moderate income housing plans were not compliant with state code. It's particularly concerning because that, if not remedied, has the potential to jeopardize the city's ability to receive grants from both the state and the federal government. A bunch of cities had a meeting with Utah League of Cities and Towns and with the state of Utah, and they kind of walked us through what some of the larger scale issues were. Fortunately for West Haven, our issues were minor. There was some verbiage in the section 10.9a of state code. There was some verbiage that had changed in this last legislative session that we need to correct. But we also have to set new goals for how the city is going to comply with the requirements of state law. Also, fortunately, the city already has several projects that we need to work on anyways that happen to fit very nicely with some of the options that state law gives us. So what this amendment to what this resolution proposes, what this amendment to the moderate income housing plan proposes, it's two things. That makes the changes so that the citations from Utah Code 10.9a match the verbiage that is currently in state statute. And it also sets new goals from the options that the statute presents us with and sets strategies and timelines for their implementation. I've had a meeting with the state and gone over what I have presented to you guys, and they have let me know that that as drafted and as presented to you guys, that if that is what the city council ultimately adopts, that will put West Haven into compliance with state code and put us back in a favorable position for those grant funds.
Excellent. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to enter into public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we enter public hearing.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to enter into public hearing for the moderate income housing plan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're in public hearing. Any member of the public who'd like to come up and speak on the moderate income housing plan, please do so at this time. Come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Good evening, Commission. Justin Nilsson, 2637 West, 1800 South, West Haven. I have so many addresses in my head. Just a thought to what this is and what it provides. I think we're all understanding of the need for a balanced city, and I support that balance. But I also support anything we can do to allow our city to grow responsibly, but also have a place for our children and grandchildren to be. And I think there's a real nice place with like-minded approach to having a balanced situation for housing in our city. We're building subdivisions now where starter homes are $1 million, and there doesn't seem to be much of a sign that that's going to change much. And so to have a balanced approach and a balanced, like-minded position for this plan, I think does a lot of things and makes the city overall a great city continuing to be in. So anyway, just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close
Make a
public
motion,
hearing.
we leave public hearing.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to leave public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we're out of public hearing. So, any questions, comments, thoughts? It is pretty scary, this. the starter home prices these days, so. Are we ready to move it forward? We talked a lot about it in the work session too, so.
And Sherry, you've gone to a lot of work. There's a lot of striking out, a lot of striking through, not striking out.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of editing. Looks like a lot of effort and time and.
I just feel fortunate that we're not one of those cities that faced a total rewrite, that our fixes were actually pretty simple.
I mean, I can't think of anything to change.
Okay,
Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, I will make a motion that we recommend approval recommend sending for approval to City Council the West Haven City Moderate Income Housing Plan.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to the City Council of the West Haven City Moderate Income Housing Plan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's on to City Council. Item number 10, a public hearing to consider a request to rezone property at 3675 South Midland Drive from A1 to C3. Somebody here for that? Yeah. Come on up.
Yeah,
Give us your name first.
yeah, no problem. Mitch Morris. Sometimes they ask for the address, 3135 South Richmond Street in Salt Lake.
Okay.
Yeah, and I am the applicant here. So happy to answer any questions that you may have. Just as it states, we're going for the rezone of the property to a C3 zone. You may recognize my face from last month. I was here for the property to the parcel to the north to rezone that property to C2. This property in particular is shaped differently. It's a very deep lot. The northern boundary is just over 500 feet from Midland to the back of the property, and then the southern property line, is 381 feet there. So it is a deep lot, and I think the main reason, I'm sure you're going to ask why C3 and not C2. The main reason there is that we can't pretend that a retail user is going to take up 350 feet there. Retail users want high visibility. They want that frontage. The other depth there that's important is the north to south depth, which is I have here 135 feet on that west side there. So it's a very narrow kind of rectangular parcel. And we anticipate a retail user. Our interests are aligned as the city and as the owner, future owner, to have a retail user out front, but there's not I don't know of any retail users that would take up that deep space there. So, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have as well.
Are you thinking retail on the front end and then something different in the back? Is that what you're thinking?
Correct.
Oh.
Yep.
So C3 would more comply with the businesses you want to put back there, I guess. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and we've had a few interested parties for something in the back. We have retail users programmed for the north parcel and the frontage even here. We have NDAs, so I can't disclose the actual uses themselves, but everything is retail up front, and then the back just is an empty lot that just is not usable to a retail user. So what we kind of envision there and who we've had the most interest from is kind of the likely use as a flex office warehouse user, just of a local business and that is something that would be allowed in a C3 zone, but not in a C2. Not even conditionally.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. And I think C3 is still, it complements and is consistent with the commercial along Midland and the commercial and the development that the city is envisioning there. We feel it is. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll do the public hearing. Hang
Great.
tight. We'll have you come back up after, so,
Thank you.
okay. I'll entertain a motion for the public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we enter public hearing.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to enter into public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're in public hearing. Again, any member of the public who would like to come and speak on this matter may do so at this time. Please state your name for the record. If you're online, raise your hand. You just miss being with us, don't you?
Good evening. Justin Nielsen, Stillwater Construction Group, 2637 West, 1800 South, West Haven. Nice to see you again. I do have a couple points. I obviously own the property surrounding this piece. We've been down this road a lot with this piece, as we all know. There's been some dialogue that have gone from one thing to another and what that goal is and what the city intends to do with that piece. And we all know that, so I'll leave that alone. But when we rezoned the piece adjacent to that, the Planning Commission's recommendation was C2. And I know that the piece to the south is C3. But my agenda and my thoughts from a property owner standpoint is I would rather not piece together, right? We already have commercial in the city. We already have had some discussion on what's allowed within the city ordinance on the commercial side. And I think the city's done a great job of clarifying what's available within the C1, 2, and 3. But in that, my hope is that we're consistent. And the city did rezone the piece next door to this as C2. That was the updated recommendation. And so my thought and recommendation would be is to stay true to that and keep it at C2.
Are you talking about the property to the north,
Talking to the property
to the south?
to the south,
Okay.
Elite Customs. Technically, I think on the map it's C3. But if we go C3 and then my property C2 and then we go C3 again and then see where we're going. And I let it be up to the city. I let the city dictate what they wanted to zone that to, and they chose to zone it as C2. That was what's on the general plan. So my hope is that we stay consistent so we can plan and prepare to do a nice project there and have it be something that's viable, but know what we're playing with as we plan and prepare. So just a thought.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is the one that they're looking at.
Andy Davis, 2210 South, 2200 West. The general plan shows this as being a C2, correct? That is what it shows. What's the point of a general plan if we don't follow it? Because of the way the state laws are written with ombudsmen, sorry, I can't ever pronounce that word. All the power, once a general plan is written, is in the hands of the developer. If a developer comes to the city and says, hey, your general plan shows a C2 and that's what we want to do, we cannot, as a city, deny that application unless we have compelling countervailing public interest, which means the developer, in the language of the code, says now I'm forgetting my words. They're basically entitled approval when they are following the general plan. When we make a general plan, we have the whole city come in and comment and say, this is what we think is going to work, and it goes through all the proper channels. This is what we should follow. Another thing I'm glad we didn't get in too much today, people always talk about, well, what are we going to use it for? That discussion should not be had at this state, because when we call it a C2 or a C3, our ordinance has a whole list of approved uses The current developer may have a specific intent in mind. Our city is very young, and in 50 years, the retailer, whoever it may be, is going to be gone. I work in this type of industry. I see these changes every single day in commercial properties. What may be something today is going to be something different tomorrow. So I ask you, when we're considering these changes, please consider all of the permitted uses in that zone. Because, like I say, they may have an intent and they may follow through with it. That's great, but it is going to change. So are we okay with all of those other 25 uses? I don't have any beef with this property specifically, just the idea of, as a city, I think we should be following the general plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to,
I'll make a motion that we leave public hearing.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to leave public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're out of public hearing. So staff recommended that we stay with C2. Do you want to discuss that?
Alka?
So yeah, the main thing I looked at was the general plan and kind of looking at that whole area. So that's mostly where that C2 recommendation came from. And then to my knowledge, the property to the south of that is C2. Is that not correct?
Yeah, I think so. That's what he was saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought he was saying it was C3. So yeah, so the property above it was rezoned to C2 and the one below it is C2. So I think it would make sense to be consistent with it. But yeah, that's pretty much the main
Okay.
reason why.
All right. Any questions?
No, I kind of agree with, because I was noticed on C3, there's no height restriction on buildings. So we would, just kind of looking over the C3, that seems like a big open-ended, could be a problem. So I'm leaning the C2, I agree with that. Keep them with the general plan.
Agreed. I just feel like after instances we've had that we are kind of bound by what our zoning is, and so I would prefer that we stick with C2 and follow staff recommendations.
Natalie's nodding her head. Andrew, any thoughts?
I do agree with the consistency. I was going to pull up the C2 zone. I understand the desire for the flex property, but I do think the consistency is where we need to be with the other land around that.
And Sherry, that's flex property, that's not something that can be a conditional use. It's just not permitted in C2.
Sorry, can you say that
The
again?
flex property that he was asking about. I didn't write down exactly what it was, but like being able to
Well,
have,
essentially doing like a office with a warehouse.
Warehouse.
Like a small office with a warehouse component.
is that anything that could be conditional under C2, or is that not permitted?
I
trying
would
find
have
it
to
under
look
here.
at. I would have to look at the.
Yeah, I
table
couldn't
of
find that
trying to look
exact,
at
I was
the-
trying to look that up and I couldn't find that answer.
I
to that
don't
exact
believe
question.
that warehousing is a permitted use in C2.
Okay. I'm just trying to scroll real quick here. Warehouse, no, yeah, it's not permitted,
Like, I
not
have to go
permitted.
find it for
Like conditional for a C3.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know that was the same as the flex kind of a thing, so.
No, even with flex space, the uses still have to be allowed. Flex space isn't the use. Each of the individual
building
tenants,
type,
it still
yeah.
has to be an allowed use. Flex space doesn't just broadly cover it.
Yeah, I just feel like we're opening ourselves up with an open-ended with C3. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, there's that one. Conditional.
Not allowed in C2.
Oh, no, no, no.
Yeah. Sorry, we're just looking over the ordinance here.
Yeah.
Yeah, height restriction, no height restriction was kind of my main red flag that I thought that's a small, narrow space.
Have to hit the right spot or it doesn't go.
But I mean, if you have buildings with like, they have a storefront and like a garage door in the back, is that considered warehousing or is that considered?
No, there's a certain amount. Like we've got people that have their office like in flex space, and then they
Yeah.
also have like storage of whatever materials are related to their business. It's whatever the primary function of the building is. If the primary function is to have your office and your business run out of there, but you also store whatever your product is, like a contractor or something like that. Like if they have their office and some of their materials and equipment there. Well, actually, that's a really bad example. Let me back up.
Like if you have someone that's selling a product like honey, for example, and they have a storefront in the front with maybe like an office, and then they have some of the honey stored in the back, but they're not distributing in and out. It's solely for.
If they're just storing it, then it's likely that it would be classified just as an office. Some of it depends on the intensity of the use. If it tips it more towards one use or the other,
Is that not what he's?
because we have some cases where, they have an office and they're doing some of the distribution. They have some customer visits, and that's going to be looked at differently than somebody that just has like, they have an office there, they have an assistant, they have some of their product, but they don't have any customer visits.
Yeah.
That's more of just a pure office. If the storage of whatever it is they're selling or their equipment or whatever, if that's ancillary to what the building is being used as, then it's going to be looked at differently than if it's like a full-on contractor's yard.
Yeah.
But I think to
It's
get
just a
back to
gray
the
area, but-
basics is that's what it's on the general plan and that's what's around it. So we could spend a long time tonight thinking about, oh, well, we don't want that, but we'd be okay with this. I guess I don't know that we need to.
No, it looks to
Rehash
me
that.
like the C2 has plenty of options though for
So,
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm getting at is that, obviously I think we're all leaning towards recommending C2. I just want to have the discussions that way they know that there's
Yep.
probably a ton of options that could be looked at with.
Yeah, I
that
think
back
if you look
area
over the
within that
ordinance, there's a
zone.
lot of options in C2 that could go there. So I think you'll still be okay to do what you want to do. So, all right, ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion that we forward this application to the city council with a recommendation that they approve the application to rezone parcel 080220001, the 1.35 acres that's located at 3675 South Midland Drive from A1 to C2.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to recommend to city council that they approve the application for the rezone of parcel 08-022-0001. It's 1.35 acres in total located
Sorry.
at 3675 South Midland Drive from A1 to C2.
Sorry, Darren, I was going to ask a question. So he came in asking for C3.
Yes.
Is he okay with C2? I just want to make sure that we recommend it up that way, or do we deny it, or do we?
No, from my understanding, and I think there's a light. Amy may be able to speak more to it. I don't believe the recommendation can be made to a different zone than what was applied for, but a negative recommendation can be made towards what we are applying for, and that was what, from my understanding, is legally permissible. But
Okay.
I don't know
So
if
do you
any-
not want it rezoned at all to a commercial?
I think there's still more discussion that can be had to discuss it, to rezone it to the C3, and I think ultimately we'd like to be moved forward.
Just on
Whether
the
that's
denial
with-
instead of recommending a C2?
Yeah, and it's not a denial. I mean, you can recommend a denial,
Well,
right?
that's what they're leaning towards, is recommending denial of
You can
the
recommend a
C3. So
denial.
that's what, my question is to you is, are you saying you'd rather have the denial go to the city council than them recommending a C2? But the motion wasn't to deny, but he's suggesting he doesn't want the recommendation.
Voted on the motion yet.
Just the
Right, so
discussion.
what do you want? You want us to recommend denial of the C3, or do you want us to recommend C2?
Yeah,
I mean, city council's gonna make the decision.
yes, yeah. I think we don't want to set the expectation. I think the city, from discussions we've had, the city has wanted retail along Midland, retail on this property, on the property to the north as well. And we don't want to set the expectation that, hey, we're going to bring in retail, but in the back 2/3, we just can't bring in retail. No, retail users don't want to be there. It's not retail friendly. So I think ultimately we would want to proceed with our original application to C3, and if that leads to a negative recommendation or recommendation to deny to staff or to city council, then that's okay. That's
So then you would
acceptable.
have to come back another time to request a rezone to C2 if that's what you wanted, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I
Okay.
withdraw my motion.
Okay, motion's withdrawn. Okay, so new motion.
I will make a motion that we recommend city council deny a rezone from A1 to C3.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion to recommend denial to the city council from A1 to C3 for this parcel 08-022-0001 located at 3675 South Midland Drive. All those in favor of recommending denial to the city council, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Thank
You're on to city council.
Thank you.
That, okay.
Appreciate it.
Good catch, Andrew.
All right, we've already handled item 12, so item 13, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you to the public for all their comments. It's very helpful.
It's kind of nice to have